Good evening. My name is Jim Kello. Welcome to New Tracks Meetup. Thanks for coming. Hope you come back often. This is the place where mentors help modelers build. I really hope you enjoy the show tonight. If you're new to the show, please register at our website, newtracksmodeling.com. And don't forget to confirm your registration by replying to the email that you'll receive. If you have sent in the email close to the date, a day, 2 days before the date of the next show, if you'll send the webmaster or send me an email, we'll send you the link to make sure you don't miss that first show. After that, you should get an email that'll give you the login information for Zoom for each one of our upcoming shows. If you have some friends who might be interested in this, please feel free to send the Zoom login information to them. They might well be interested in what's happening on the shows, and we encourage you to try to ask them to join us. Also, if you go to the website, there's a form that you can fill out to give your comments about the show, any suggestions you might have, comments about good or bad, and any ideas you might have for the future. And again, you're encouraged to do that. Lastly, the show requires a lot of people to put it together and to make it work. And we always need more people. So if you have a little bit of time, please let us know, and we'll work out something that is comfortable for you and helps us get the shows going. And we really would appreciate any help that you can give us. I have a couple of announcements I'd like to make about upcoming build-alongs that we're going to have on our show. Banter Models is going to have a kit built by Clark Cooney, MMR, starting December the 1st. We will have the information on how to order the kit and the discount that Banter is giving on the kit closer to the December the 1st start date. So don't try to order something from Banter right now because it won't be effective until later on, probably 30 days prior to the December start date. We're also fortunate in that we have All Nation that is going to provide a kit, and it is their waffle boxcar. You may have heard about it in the past. It's impossible to find. And the new owner, John Wubel, has decided that that's one of the kits that he's bringing back. Now, I want to go into this a little bit, and please bear with me. John bought the All Nations from the Pope Foundation, and it had been sitting in a warehouse or in a barn for about 15, 16 years, something like that. And John is trying to put the company together and decide which kits he's going to start offering and when. So he's having trouble getting suppliers to provide parts and so forth that he needs to prepare some new molds or new dies that he might have to have. And he's just overloaded right now trying to set up an accounting system and get the company started. And finding out what's in all of the boxes that are in 2 separate locations right now, trying to get everything unpacked to see where everything is. So you have to be careful and be conscious of that and kind of bear with him a little bit. Now, I want to give you this information. The All Nation Waffle Side Boxcar is going to be available in 2 versions. The high-end or more expensive kit is going to sell for $159.95 plus $12 shipping. And that'll be the one that David Schultz is going to build on the show starting November the 6th. This kit is more comprehensive. It's got multiple roof profiles, inside interior walls with a lot of detail. And it's not a trivial kit to be put together. Yet John says it should challenge the entry-level model builder with plenty of opportunities to innovate. So he thinks it is appropriate for either experienced or novice builders. Then the basic kit for the same model, the waffle boxcar, is going to sell for $109.95, $109.95, with $12 shipping. And it'll be available by reservation with a 5% discount from the $105.95 price. The other one, the more detailed model, will have no discount at all. That's as cheap as John feels that he can offer the boxcar. And he strongly suggests that you put your reservation for a kit just as early as possible, today, if at all possible. The reason for that is all of the 3D printing and everything that's involved in the production of the kits now. John is having to do himself with the various 3D printers that he has in his home. And he hasn't been able to, so far, find a supplier to do that 3D printing. So he's got to do it all himself. And that's why either the more expensive kit, the more detailed kit, or the basic kit, you need, if you want to participate in this build along in O scale, it's available in O scale only, then you need to order it as soon as possible. And where do you get it? You get it on his website. You can call him, which I think he would prefer, but I'm not sure about that. But my guess is I've talked to him several times, and the telephone was easy for us. Or you can send him an email. You can go to our website. We have all of this information posted now on our website under the build-alongs and also in the event section. So if you're interested in this, understanding John's problem with trying to get this company back in business, I think it's really outstanding that he wants to do the build-along, and we really hope that you'll support him as much as you possibly can. So that's going to start November the 6th, and David Schultz is going to be the one building the kit. Hunterline starts their My Build May the 22nd. And don't forget that Al Collins is offering a 10% discount off of his sanding equipment for anybody that is doing the build along with the Hunterline kit. In addition to that, we've got Bill Davis is going to start June the 2nd on the show, building the LaBelle baggage open platform car. And LaBelle Woodworking is offering that car with a 25% discount to modelers who want to build along with Bill that passenger car. We also have
Jim. It's the closed vestibule one.
I'm sorry. Okay. Instead of the open, it is the closed. Okay.
Right.
We also have another person who's going to be doing a session right after Bill's, starting June the 2nd, on detailing the underbody of all passenger cars. This is his specialty. That's what he loves to investigate and get details about. And I think that you'll really enjoy him, and it should be helpful to the people that are going to be building along with Bill in the car he's building. Then we have, starting June the 9th, two really special guests. Earl Hackett is going to start a series on 3D printing. Earl is going to start from the point of, this is a part I want to produce, and he's going to show you what is involved in doing the CAD drawing for that specific part. Then he's going to show what has to be done once you've done the CAD drawing to get it into the printer and printing. Then he's going to show you what's involved in taking that printed part and cleaning it up so that it's really a usable part in your model. So he's going to take you from the conception all the way to the finished model, but he's going to be doing it in short segments, and hopefully this is going to improve everybody's knowledge of really what's involved in the whole process of 3D printing. That's going to start on June the 9th. That same evening, we're going to have the first hobby shop owner on the show, Anita Walker, who owns Central Coastal Trains in California. And she's going to be the guest on that same show, June the 9th. So I think both of those are really special events, and hope that you'll be able to make them. I've had 6 people recommend hobby shops. I've had 3 hobby shops accept. I have not heard back from the other 3. If you have hobby shop that you believe should be invited to appear on our show because of the service and the capabilities that they offer modelers, please let me know who it is, and I'll make sure that they're invited to be on the show. So with that said, I'd like now to turn to Paul Thompson for the quick tip for the evening. Paul?
Right, thank you, Jim. And let me just get the screen share going here. Okay, continuing on from last week and other hobbies that have things that might be of interest to us. I hope everybody can see that. What you're looking at here basically is something called coin tongs, which you can buy relatively inexpensively, but the nice thing is they're coated. And I strongly suspect you can buy a vinyl coating and coat your own tongs or tweezers, but these come ready-made. I have 2 examples that one's kind of a cross scissor that holds things as a clamp, and the other is a set of normal, you hold them together and whatever. The nice thing about these things is with this non-slip sort of rubbery coating, you can grab parts that normally with another pair of tweezers is just going to slip around or move around. These are very sure. If you're, say, putting on a grab iron or that's metal, it's not going to move holding with these things. And that's a close-up of the larger model that I found, and that's another view of it. And this is the smaller, normal size. They have flat rather than pointed, so you can actually grip things and hold parts. And that, guys, is my tip for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. I love that tweezer. I use that all the time. Thank you so much for your tip this evening. Next, I'd like to turn to Martin Breckbill, MMR, for Martin to talk to us about scratch building a car. Martin, welcome.
Good evening, Jim. Let's see if I can get myself shared up here with the right screen. And there we go. Come on, there you go. So this is, I guess, according to that, must be the 4th time I have slides in this set. Either that or I've lost track of things again. Hopefully I haven't done these already at least once, but I think that's not going to happen. Because there's the first slide. We go back a few slides. When I said I made 8 of these blanks last year, I've used 4 for 2 different pairs of cars so far, so I must have 4 left. And as you can see, this is the first step on the next pair of cars. And I have a completely different base. So whatever that number of 4 was, it becomes irrelevant again. So this car took a completely different type of base. I didn't realize that until I started designing it in the back of my head, and then it came out forward, spat it out on the table, on the bench, and I said, oh, I need to build a whole other different type of floor for this car. So that's not going to work. So put those bases back on the stack. Not to fret, they're going to get used for something someday. Well, actually, I think at least 3 of them have already been used. But we just frame this up together here. I think these are 3 or 4 by 16s or 14s, some 4 by 4, some 2 by 4, whatever. It doesn't really matter that much. It's what looks right. Makes 4 sides that actually match, because it'd be nice if one side actually runs parallel to the other side and everything gets aligned neatly. That's going to be important later. And use a copious amount of nut bolt washer castings. You can see these are the supports actually for the bolsters that are actually going to go on this frame eventually. They're just there as bolster supports at this point. But we have nice diagonal bracing, the 4x whatever siding. And I basically, I guess that's 12 by 22 in HO. I'm not sure what it comes out to be in O scale, but it feels right. It is right when I'm building. And put these together. This is a little tricky, gluing this on the frame like this. I use my usual trick of a little bit of goo, take it apart, put a little bead of CA down, put it all back up. And if you can, you put a steel block on the inside to keep it from falling over, falling out of square with the frame and the base, because you do want the sides to be straight. It's always nice to have straight construction when you're building. Things tend to come out a little smoother that way. And they make for less corrections on the fly later. When we build some ends, well, we know how. I hadn't built the ends there because I didn't know how wide this car was going to be until I put the sides on. So each end is built to fit the actual sides, fitting between these sides. Man, frog in the throat tonight. Maybe it's just a toad. I don't know. Pause for one beverage with some margarita juice in it, or much better now.
Yeah, just don't croak on us. That's all we ask.
Yeah. Ribbit. And you can see in this picture, I have drilled through the top rail into the base and added I think it's either 25,000, I think it's 25,000 phosphor bronze wire from T-sheet. So those are it's actually tied into the base with all the way around with brass wire. You see the little tips where I nipped them off at the top. Those will go away eventually. And I've added an extra support beam across the bottom for the end to sit on. And now we had some slope sheets in here from the ends, because these are going to be some sort of hopper car, or so that's what it appears at this point. This is kind of fun to do, and it's much easier than I thought it was going to be. And put these two beams here in the bottom, cut a bevel on them, sand a bevel, whichever you care to do. I think I ran it through the bandsaw at an odd angle and didn't lose any fingers. These pieces are just glued up into a single flat piece. Just take a sanding block and put a bevel on it that matches down here. Slide it into place, cut it off up here. Take the same sanding block, put another bevel on, it drops into place. It's surprisingly easy. I really was agonizing over this the whole time I was doing it, wondering, how am I going to measure this? How tricky is this going to be? How hard is this going to be? And it turns out you sand it and fit it and it drops into place. And I build a lot of things that way. I don't necessarily measure and cut to make something fit. I cut close, sand it to fit, drop it into place. That way I don't have to really worry about what size it is. If it fits, it's right. Well, we get a little fancier now. We'll put a centerpiece in here. I've forgotten what these are, but they're pretty good sized pieces of basswood. Two pieces joined together with a bevel cut on them. I know I cut those with a bandsaw because it's pretty good size. You can see I've capped over the phosphor bronze tie rods with some nut bolt washer casting. Just cut the top off, drop it on top of the wire after I've sanded it smooth with the top cord. Holds it right in place. It's all glued in place. Styrene doors, you'll see those from the other side shortly. This is actually steel wire instead of brass wire. I just happened to have a lot of it laying around. It was the right size, so I used it. It goes through both sides, pretty much centered over the door opening. These are actually oversized brake wheels from Wiseman Model Services. There is a ratchet and pawl casting behind them on a piece of styrene. There's I don't know, I guess it's in the next slide, but some chain. There's a hole. There is actually a eye bolt at the bottom of this door that the chain is hooked into. It comes up here, wraps around this 3 or 4 times, So if you wanted to open the door, and you can't with these cars, but if you wanted to make it operational, and I toyed with the idea and abandoned it quickly because I didn't want to deal with the hinges, or a working ratchet and pawl joint. That seemed a little far-fetched for me in O scale. Doable, but I wasn't going to do it. So that's about where those are. And you can see I've actually put in a brake wheel. Must be on the other end over here, and you can't see it. There's a brake wheel on this car. There's the ratchet and pawl casting. The ends, I started decking those out. There's some polling pockets, some grab irons, and there's also a whole bunch of nut bolt washer castings, large ones coming in from the sides into those beams in the frame. So it all ties together. You flip it over and you can see what I was talking about a bit more here. For some reason, there's only, yeah, okay, so all the stirrup steps are on here. Those are brass from US Hobbies or Chemtron, I don't remember which. The brake stirrup, my resin castings for the car bolsters, but this is just, I've forgotten, like 40 thousandths or 60 thousandths styrene. This is an 090 nut. It's actually on a eye bolt that goes through this piece of channel that's attached to the styrene. An anchored strip here with nut bolt washer castings. These are actually hopper door hinges. They're a resin casting I have molds for. So I use them quite frequently when I can find an excuse to use them, but not functional. So it's a static operation. You can see the nut, the 090 on the other side of this bar that goes through that holds the chain mechanism for opening and closing the doors. Let's see what we got next. Just another picture from the other side. You can see where I was talking about these nut bolt and washer castings, the large ones. These are large Grant Line ones on the sides. And again, the brake wheels. And you can see the ratchet pawl casting behind each one. Well, it's no fun unless you paint it. Some people don't like me painting my models. I actually get people complaining about it. It's like, oh, it looks too good to paint. I'm like, well, sorry, paint's going on it. Natural wood, not happening. Just basic boxcar red, freight car red, and come back with a brush and do all the black trim bits. Adding the arch bar trucks. That's not an arch bar on that end. That's interesting. Well, an arch bar on one and an Andrews on the other. Not quite sure why I mixed and matched them. I think I may have been running short of something at the time. And I've added some wire grabs on the ends. There's endless amounts of little details you can add to this type of car. And you can see better view over in the end here with the step, the grab, the brake assembly, the ratchet and pawl castings. I love putting these things on cars because I just, if you don't have that, it's a small detail, but it just adds a sense of completeness around that end of the car. And you can just see it. It just makes things better. You can see the large actual brass nuts that are on these steel rods. And there's a close-up shot of the underbody after it's got a coat of black paint on it. Smaller nut. Actually, I think that's an 0100 or an 080. I don't remember. And just your hinges. Pretty simple, pretty easy, nothing complicated here. Another shot. This is the other car. So there's two of them, so you get to see the same car twice, only it's different. And a slightly different set of chain. I had two different sizes of chain, so they got used. And the underbody, basically the same underbody again. And this one,
the trucks match this time.
Yes, I was just about to say that. It's like somehow I got the trucks to match on this car. I got to go pull these out of the box and take a look at them and say, what's going on here? Why would I have a mismatched truck? And these are actually metal trucks too. O-scale. These are the older Athearn trucks with metal wheel sets in them. So all the weight is right here. There's no weight. The rest of the car doesn't weigh very much. So there's a lot of weight down, really low, right on the track. Of course, I could put a load in the car and it would solve that problem too. So 4 down, 4 to go still. And the next pair of cars in the series are in progress. So we'll probably deviate away from doing pairs of cars for a while and do individual cars. I have 3 or 4 individual cars sitting on the shelf that I've done. The 2 that are on the bench being done right now are challenging, and they're fighting back, particularly since I dropped one of the castings on the floor and I'm unable to locate it. So I had to go buy another 24 castings to get one to finish these 2 cars. And I know I will find the missing one the day after the other 24 arrive. The universe works that way every time. It'll magically just make itself known. I'll probably step on it in my bare feet when I'm in my shop and find it that same day as I bring the other parts down from Scale City Designs. So we'll stop there, and whatever questions you have, throw them at me.
I have a quick question. What did you might have talked about this earlier. I'm not quite sure, but what did you do for painting?
Oh,
You
much simpler.
do.
We had some warm days in March where it actually got up into the mid 70s. So I just took these outside and hit them with a spray can. I really like Rust-Oleum flat red primer. It's very close to a freight car red. It's cheap, it's easy, it's $4 a can, and in O scale, $4 a can is a bargain because breaking out the airbrush, setting it all up, burning through an entire bottle of my Flowquill boxcar red to do 2 cars versus $4 for a can from Home Depot. I'm going to Home Depot every time at that point.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that flat red is a bargain. I recommend it to anybody.
So this
Martin?
car is vacuum brake, air brake line system?
Yeah, it's going to get someday. It's going to get the if I can find a pair of the trucks from SMR that have the single brake system set up. That's
Right.
what's going to go on these 2.
Excellent.
We're going to go way back. We're going to go back in time even further on this pair. But-
Martin, what did you use for the plan? How did you
Plan?
develop? Yep.
I wasn't.
Photo, what did you use?
I wasn't kidding. I got an idea in the back of my head and it jumped out and wrote itself down in front of me as I build it. Plans I draw up either as I build or when I'm done. It's rare that I actually have a set of plans. It happens, but I'd seen somewhere pictures of wooden hopper cars. And I thought, well, I want 2 of those. Why can't I have 2 of those? How hard can it possibly be? And it's not hard. It really isn't. A little bit of, think it through a little bit, take it step by step. You build the base, it's going to have a hopper. So you got to leave the base open. You got to build some sides. The space between the sides tell you how big the ends are. Hopper has got to have a slope in it so stuff drops out. It leads you around by the nose till you get to the end of the project.
Martin, you got to be careful making this look so easy and talking about it like it's not brain surgery, because you're going to get too many people doing this kind of scratch building.
Well, that would be a tragedy, wouldn't it? I say that with all facetiousness possible. It's not hard. I mean, people like to make a big deal out of it, but it's really not that hard. Now, I must have to say, having the supplies in your shop readily available makes it a lot easier. I'll concede that and confess right up front. I don't have to leave my shop but rarely to buy things unless I drop them on the floor and lose them. That doesn't happen very often. Usually I drop it and I dropped it, look down, see where it landed, follow it until it stops moving, dive on the floor and grab it before it crawls off. And I dropped this particular part twice before. Third time was a charm. It got away. So that's a problem. So I'm going to buy a pair of those tongs we were showing there. Just a few. Paul was showing us there. Maybe that'll help me. The squeeze spring-loaded tweezer with the vinyl on them. I could use 3 or 4 pairs of those probably.
Well, Martin, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you making this look so easy for everybody. Thank you so much.
So Jim, I can either go to a freight car next, or I can start in on a crazy kit that's older than I am. So it's up to you, but we can talk about it later.
All right, I'll leave it up to you. I don't really care. I'd love to see both of them.
Okay.
All right. Next is John Frankfurter. He's going to do the Watch Me Build, an S-scale scratch-built bridge. John, welcome.
Remember, you're muted, John.
Okay. Let's do a recap from last week. We looked at my layout to say where the bridge is going to go. We talked about a design I found on the internet. Are we live now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
We're looking at my layout to see where the bridge goes. We looked at a design I found on the internet. We talked about how I sized the bridge to fit the span that I had to cover. I designed the bridge in the CAD program, and I cut out the sides with the laser. So what's next? I had a few questions about my design. They said, well, it doesn't look like a real bridge because the sides were flat. Well, you know, this is my first scratch-built bridge design, so I wanted to test out my laser since a lot of kits are coming out laser cut now. So I wanted to try my hand at cutting out the bridge. It is missing the cross braces on the sides. I realized that after I got them all cut out, but those can be added in afterwards. The gussets and the rivets didn't look real. Well, another thing, this is my first design, and I thought they looked pretty good. I could have used glue-on gussets and rivets. Well, I'm not really sure that I could find any in S gauge that would fit my bridge. So anyway, take those with a grain of salt, and we'll move on. So this is the deck for my bridge. You're going to ask, why didn't I extend the planks out to the ends? Well, the ends is where, if you remember from the last one, I have 2 inches of foam on each side of my table, or on the table. So this is actually the decking is actually supporting everything. I mean, the side frames are more or less just the decoration. So in my CAD program, I set it up so I measured the width of the ties across there, and I cut a pocket in there so that my track would fit in there. And if you look right down here, I left, I think there's about a 1/2 inch piece of wood in there on both sides. That's so I can attach the side rails or the side frames to that. So here's what it looks like with the side frames in place. That's just going to get glued into place there. When I started putting it together, I decided to use 3/16 Plastruct I-beam pieces. I chose 3/16 because that's what S gauge is 3/16. So I figure I'm just guessing they're going to be a foot. So when I got these pieces glued in here, and I used super glue, that sort of formed a pocket that the deck would sit in. So I used the plastistruct up here for the top of the bridge, and that's what forms the pocket that the deck sits in. And then this is my what held the bottom frame pieces together. So then I had to go back in and figure out, go back into the design software, and I had to, I looked at a bunch of different bridges, and this is basically sort of the bracing that they use. Like I said, I missed the bracing that goes top to bottom on the sides, but I can add those in later. I used balsa wood for this one because I ran out of basswood. And I found out that's a big mistake, since balsa wood's a lot softer. It burns quicker on the laser, and it breaks real easy when you start cutting these small pieces. Because I don't know if you can see in some of these, I have there's real tiny holes in there. It's to simulate the structure of an actual cross beam in there. And when I was gluing these into place, I did break a couple of them. And the nice thing about that was you just go back over to the laser and make a couple more. Whenever I make a model now, I try to add the name of since I modeled Norfolk Southern on my layout. This is my Norfolk Southern Bridge. It was done in 2020 and it was made by me. So that's in the very center support in the center of the bridge. I used Krylon Deep Gray. Seemed to cover really nice with the wood and the plastic, plastistruct. Sprayed it, didn't get any runs. Had no problems with it as far as it covered the wood and the plastic just fine. So after I got it all put together, I just sort of set it into place. And you can see right here where this is where the decking overlaps the 2-inch foam on each side. So I put it in place, and I thought it looked pretty good. So the next, in the last wrap up, I'm going to be cutting out the foam right here on both sides, and there'll be pylons put in there. And we'll talk about that next week. There are some other things. I'm adding some handrail up here, some steps. John, the engineer, is going to be up there watching everything. So hopefully that'll wrap up my scratch build. And even though it's not technically a S-gauge bridge, I think it looks really good on my layout now that it's finished. I'll on the next week, I'll show some pictures of my other bridge where it's setting side by side on my gorge that's finished. And you know, for doing this without any plans, without any plans to measure off of, I think this turned out pretty good. It looks like a really nice bridge, and we'll see you next week for the wrap up. That's all I have.
Does anybody have any questions for John? Well, John, I don't know about the other people. I understand the comments that you've gotten. I think you got a beautiful product there, very, very nice, and nothing to back away from at all. That's a beautiful model. So thank you so much. I appreciate what you're doing here.
Thanks, Jim.
Well, next was supposed to be Bernie Kopinski to show us his O-scale Civil War era layout. But he had an emergency come up and couldn't join us tonight, I'm sorry to say. So those of you that were looking forward to seeing him, you're not going to see him tonight. We'll try to get him rescheduled once he gets settled again. And I'm so sorry that he couldn't be here, but there's nothing that we can do about it. So, does anybody have anything they'd like to talk about before I close out this fairly short show this evening?
I just like to say, John, I think that bridge is great. And just the idea of tackling something with a laser cutter would intimidate me, much less, trying to actually design something that's serviceable and works. I'm looking forward to seeing how it turned out next week.
Thank you. One of the things that it was kind of sort of difficult was to get it to fit into the space that I had to work with. Since I had the 2-inch foam on each side, I had to recalculate everything from to make it from 24 inches down to 20 inches and then have it to fit. And then next week I'll show where I use my CNC machine with some blocks of foam that I carved in. It looks like blocks of actually blocks in there. And I have little pads where the bridge abutment or the bridge structure comes down, and they're pretty close to the middle of those little pads. And I use some, well, I'll go into that next week about some of the other stuff I did, but
Well, how did, if you don't mind me asking, how did you get started in all this automation? I've never asked any of the model manufacturers what made them buy a laser cutter and get into the business, but you're doing it, I assume, for yourself, not for a business.
Right. Well, what it is I had I have 2 CNC machines. I have a bigger one. It's a 2 foot by 2 foot that I use for wood hobby projects. Well, I originally bought this second one, but it was kind of a cheap knockoff. So it wasn't really good for woodworking stuff. Through the YouTube or through Facebook, I hooked up with JTech lasers, and they have just the laser module that you could mount on the CNC machine. So I took the motor off and threw it away, put the laser on there, and then I started using the same software that I designed on my big CNC. And I just, you have to, there's a lot of adjustments for the laser. So I'm working through that with my software. But there's so many things that you can make with the laser. And, granted, it's not a 60-watt laser, it's only a 7-watt. So it's not like I can buzz through 1/4-inch plywood or stuff like that. I mean, I'm limited to about 3 millimeter basswood. And once you figure out the design, you put it on the laser, it just lasers it out, and then you've got the pieces. There are some other pieces I'm thinking about as far as doing they have like storefronts and stuff like that. Instead of having the whole building, you just have the front of the building. So I can do the framework for that, and then I can do the modeling for the clapboard or whatever on the outside of that. So it gives me a base to work with, and then I can model up off of that.
Wow, that's fascinating. You make it sound so simple, and I guess you've already gone into it with woodworking projects, but just I envy you being able to just reach the point where you can think of something, either design it or find a design you like and then make it.
Well, the other when I first started, I had it was a real cheap CNC machine. It was only 12 by 12. It was made out of plastic, and I'd always wanted, on my layout, I'm trying to do a coal mine. So if you got a coal mine, you got to have a rotary dumper. So I searched and searched and searched for plans for a rotary dumper. Well, I found this one company that had a lot of pictures of how they build their rotary dumper. So I figured out approximate sizes to fit my S-gauge layout. So then I sat down to my software, started drawing, the CAD of what I thought it looked like. And then I used my CNC to cut out. And at some point, right now it's basically sitting because I need to create the base for it. But right now it is actually, you can rotate it. It'll have the lockdown fingers that lock the car down. And but it's stuff like that is, you know, for a beginning modeler to sit down and design something like that, they say, well, I can't do that. Well, you can if you sit down and look at what you're trying to design, and then you use your scale rulers and stuff to actually make things, scale it up or down to fit your scale. You know, it might not be perfect, but you know, some of the stuff I've designed so far looks pretty good.
Wow.
I mean, my second bridge, it's a curved, it's a curved bridge, and you know, you'll see pictures of that next week. But now that one, that's totally scratch built. There was no lasering in that whatsoever. So that was a fun project, because that I still have the 2-foot gap, but now it's a curved gap. So, you know, when you're building that bridge, if you look at the designs on a real bridge, they aren't curved, they're straight and then angle, straight, angle, straight, angle, straight. So then I took the quote I-beams that go around the outside. Now that's all curved, but it's fit to the curved straight of the inner. You know, and again, it might not be to some MMR's scale drawings and whatever, but you know what? In the long run, it looks great. I have the wood decking that goes on it, just like the pictures I've seen, and then my track lays on that. And you know, I think it all boils down to what looks good to you. You know, I've had guys in our group, our S-Gauge group, and Randy Boscher's in our group, and he even said it looked good. So I felt pretty good then.
Well, that's kind of a mantra of all of our modeling, is as long as it looks good to us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. And not only that, you also have to start somewhere. I mean, it's like, you know, there's a time that, you know, sometimes you have to pick up a toy train, you know, get that running around and all that before you get into the, you know, decide to actually build kits and stuff like that. So you got to start. So you have to start somewhere.
And then with S-Gauge, you always don't have that option. So you just have to wing it.
Absolutely.
Come on, with that scale, you can get all kinds of stuff.
Maybe you have it all. That's why I can't find it.
Well, I got quite a bit of it, I'll tell you.
Greg, if I could add a couple comments, I'm lined up to do something on laser cutting a little later. But you know, basically what I tell people is it's drawing rectangles and thinking in layers.
Well, through talking to different manufacturers, I know that there's more to it than just, you know, the laser cuts out a window hole. You know, you can get into the different layers for doing etching and doing embossed lines and stuff like this. But I'd love to see, you know, some tutorials on laser cutters and stuff like that. Not that I'm in the market for one, but I just find them interesting and find how they're used in manufacturing of kits.
One of the things that I'm going to stress to you is that there might be a laser available to you. I don't know where you're located, but you know, our local community college has a place you can go, and you know, you pay a few bucks and you can sign up and use their laser cutters and their 3D printers and their machines.
Yeah, we do have a maker place.
Space,
not
so,
that far from me.
They probably even have the CAD software that they're going to run on their laser. So, but you know, I showed this car last Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a little that I'm an S scaler too. So, you know, we don't have a lot of wooden gondola cars available in S scale. So I wanted a couple. So I just drew them up on the laser. And I mean, really, it's just rectangles. Oh, thank you. It's you know, it's a rectangle and it's got rectangular lines for the boards. And you know, I cut out these things have a shape to them on the side.
Mhm.
So I cut that out. That was a lot easier. You can see the side sill has a shape to it.
Yeah.
And I cut out that, that what's the hopper on the bottom. I just drew that. And I mean, that was one of the most complicated things I've ever cut. Because if you unfold that, it's kind of like, like a rectangle and 12,
Yeah.
4 parallelograms. So, but it was, you just do algebra and you can work it out. It's not that bad. So
Yeah. I think you need trigonometry to make that base.
yeah, I guess, but it's really like a lot of A² B² stuff, but it's really not that bad.
It's
And then,
not
I mean, I've done all kinds of fun stuff. I did, I've done buildings, I've done wooden, like wooden passenger cars and stuff like that. So it's just, like I said, a wooden passenger car is just a bunch of lines that you scribe in the wood, and you kind of have to play with your laser and see, how fast do I run it? How hot do I run it to scribe, to burn, to cut, whatever, but I mean, I've cut plastic, I've cut wood, I've cut laser board, which is a laser impregnated paper.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of stuff. And it's really, like I said, it's thinking in layers and drawing rectangles.
I think it's
Well-
fascinating that we have right here in this show, the old school way and the new school way of building kits, whether they're cars or buildings. And that just shows how expandable this hobby is and how many areas of it you can get involved in.
You know what the easy part is know somebody, get a young kid who's got one of those maker space and go and talk to him, because they're always looking for projects, and he'll help you and he'll show you. For myself, when I lived in Southern Ontario, I would drive over to Fast Tracks, and Tim would send home his 2 employees, because I would tie him and the lasers up designing goofy things. And he gave me he put it on my laptop, a $10,000 CAD program. You don't need all that for home stuff, but he used it commercially. And I would come home and I would sit and draw stuff. And finally I said, screw that. And I would take a paper dimensions over, and he would draw it in about 5 minutes. We cut it out on the laser. We dry fit the stuff. We'd make a few adjustments, and the kit was done. So it people who know how to do the drawings and that's the key.
Well, Clark, you remind me of something that happened with a very good friend of mine, Jim Koshin, who was in Florida and had some kits manufactured under his name. He's not with us anymore, but a couple of years ago, he was trying to build a water tank, and he would work with Jeff Grove to get all of the laser cutting done, but he had trouble designing the roof for this water tank. He just couldn't get everything to work in laser cutting. Well, he went to his grandson, who was about 12 at the time, and his grandson brought him into his 3D printer that he had at home. 15 minutes later, he came to him and said, "You mean like this, Grandpa?" And it was perfect.
So easy, a 5-year-old can do it. Somebody get a 5-year-old.
It's like if, a lot of us, we're afraid to touch the keyboard of the computer because we're going to get that blue screen of death. And otherwise, you get the kid from next door and you go, "Can you fix that?" "Yeah, mister, no problem."
Yeah.
Well, I just found out the other day that my wife's niece's husband is giving me a 3D printer this weekend for free.
Oh,
So that's another toy to play with.
Yeah. But
see, now that's something that I am interested in, possibly at home, and I'm finding out more and more about them, but it's a big leap for me because I've done everything with knives and files so far.
yeah, well, but that's fine. But oh my God, it's such the rabbit hole to learn how to use it.
That's what scares me.
How much? I mean,
and not to learn how to use it, but so many of us, once we get it in a hobby, it's like it becomes all engrossing, and pretty soon, I don't want 3D printing to take over as my hobby.
Well, as Tim once told me, when you have a laser printer, it becomes the hammer. And everything, when you got a hammer, you can fix anything.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, when you're trying to cut balsa wood or even basswood, if you go the wrong way on the grain, it just sort of goes off however you want to. With the laser, man, it just takes it right where you want it to go, and that's it.
The only problem, and we've sort of talked about that here before, and I think Bob mentioned it in his kit build, or somebody did. The problem is when the laser cuts it out, you do go across the grain the wrong way, and then it becomes a weaker piece. Or it doesn't look good when you stain it. Painting is fine, but staining is an issue.
this is an interlocking tower I made.
Yeah.
And, I've got little window inserts.
Yeah.
And the story is, I came home and the window inserts weren't quite the right size. They're a little too big. And I thought, I can go and sand down all those window inserts, but that looks like a hell of a lot of work. I just went in the next day and cut new window inserts. I just made them a little smaller and just cut a whole new set.
Oh, yeah.
It was so much easier than sanding them. I'm like, why am I going to waste my time sanding them? So,
Yeah.
So, and then I found out now that the roof is a little too big. So I got to go and cut a whole new roof for this one. So anyway, but I just put a new tube in my laser today. It's been down for 6 months and I'm really excited that I'm going to get it back working again, but it's not quite up to speed yet. So,
and that's why people say, well, how come it costs so much for a laser kit? Well, I got news for you. You got to cut the parts out. You got to test them. Oh, I'm a little wide here, or I'm a little, and then you got to adjust for the thickness of the wood. A little structure, and I've got this little structure that we use for a laser kit that we build in Mine of the Masters. And there's probably 15 hours in development and testing it to get it right. And, that takes time and money and effort and materials. So somebody's got to pay for it if you're a kit manufacturer.
Yeah, it's like when they talk about the cost of pharmaceuticals. Well, it's not the cost of manufacturing. It was all that expense in research and development.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to watch, I don't know, I think I posted in the chat last week, but you can go on YouTube and watch the Bar Mills layout or shop tour. See what they're doing. It's amazing. I mean, they got 5 lasers working all the time.
Yeah, I don't do anything commercially really. I mean,
Hello, you're muted. You're muted.
I keep clicking the wrong button. I was really lucky. My school bought me a $12,000 laser. So I didn't have to lay out the $12,000. And, so I don't do this commercially because I don't feel like it's fair for me to, I draw in my spare time for fun. And, like if my friend needed something, I'd cut him something, but I'm not trying to make kits because there's people out there trying to make a living. It's not really right for me to be stepping on them, so.
Well, that's like me. I mean, I had the opportunity to start a laser business, a build structure business, because I had about 15 laser kits already drawn and they worked and ready to go. But I have so many friends in the business that I was like, I'm not stepping on any toes.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, the nice thing is after all the development, then you just sit there and cut out kits, and so that's the nice thing about it is once you get it designed where you want it, then it's just a matter of churning them out.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is I don't want to write instructions.
Yeah.
That takes patience, and you got to come down to the lowest denominator of a model builder that you're going to get into, and man. And I've said this before, like even when Mine of the Masters, we gave them this laser kit and guys are opening the kits, and one guy sat there for 5 minutes. I said, what's the matter? He says, I don't know how to open the box. And I'm very serious.
Really?
And he looked at me like, can you help me? Like, I really don't know how to open the box. And it's like, oh boy. And
oh, Christmas at his house must be exciting.
Ooh, But it it is amazing, and I think it was paralysis rather than he couldn't physically open the box. I think it was paralysis, like, I'm not sure if I can do this, so I don't want to open the box.
Yeah.
But we got him through it, and he completed his little building, and he was happier, and he says, I think I could do this again, so.
That's a success.
Yep.
Well, I think that's, with scratch building and stuff, you just got to start and try something. If it doesn't work, throw it away and try something different.
Exactly. And people are afraid to fail sometimes.
That's exactly right.
And Martin,
Fear of failure.
yep, through the process of the AP or whatever, people go, oh, I'm not doing that. There's too much paperwork. Well, it's not really too much paperwork. They're just afraid of not doing it.
Yeah, it's more fear of failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I kind of had second thoughts about doing this bridge, but Jim encouraged me enough that I went ahead and went through with it. I mean, I figure if guys don't like it, oh well, it's my bridge. I'll build it the way I can and go from there.
Yeah, but you're trying something totally new, and you exposed yourself as well as your model, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I am picky about stuff and that, but I'm not gonna pick on somebody who's trying something. People who don't try stuff are the ones that should be picked on.
Well,
I think a lot of the comments aren't really aimed at picking on you, but I think a lot of it is they're trying to help you because they know that you're new at this and trying something new, and if they can give you some advice that may help you, I think that's part of what you're doing.
It's a gentle push.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not so gentle, and it can be. I know I've been accused of that already, but it's not that it's meant that way. It may just come out that way, but for most people, especially those who know me, they won't take it that way. But
well, I think for me, it's like coming into a group of MMRs, and I guess I was a little hesitant about everybody's going to point out their finger, say, oh, that looks like crap, or oh, that looks like crap. You could have done this, or you could have done that. But I'm happy with the results.
One thing
I think you should be. I mean, I couldn't do what you just did.
I think that one of the nice things about this particular part of the program is that one of the big things that you don't see beginning modelers don't realize is that a lot of the better modelers end up making 2 or 3 attempts a lot of times at various different components or sub-assemblies that we end up tossing, and we don't ever talk about those, and so people think that we just got everything together right on the first crack, and that's just not the case.
well,
Yeah, if you 3D print, if you 3D print, you can't throw your mistakes away. You have to keep a bag of them for your humility and keep you humble.
But it's like, how do you get the Carnegie Hall? Well, you practice. Well, I got news for you. Model railroading is the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Phil, where have you been hiding out?
Behind the mute button.
Yeah. I spent 2 hours recording clinics today for the convention. No, he's not. He's not listening. He doesn't care.
He's still muted.
Actually, he's not muted. He's just
Okay.
can't hear him.
He's just ignoring.
No, I have a feeling his batteries gave out on his headset.
That's possible.
So he's muted.
So he's muted and not hearing us.
What?
He's muted, just
Can you
not
hear me
through
now?
Zoom.
Yes, we hear you now. We've been making fun of you, Phil.
Maybe you still can't hear us.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear
Yes.
you now.
Yeah, I switched the microphone. That's good. No, that's good. I had to get both of them. Anyway, so this is what you're seeing is actually the wall for, I didn't put the slide, a picture up of the hotel. It's called the Commercial Hotel.
Oh,
And so as I started looking at putting the wall together, a couple of things that came up. The first was I really wanted the wall a little higher, and there's actually a trim piece up here at the top. So this corner is actually cut. I don't have a great picture of it. You'll see it later, but is actually cut to match the roof line. And then it's made up. And so on the inside, all the corner bracing and the board bracing is all done as printed pieces. This is the front deck framing underneath. And these are actually the posts. I think I showed you before the decking. It actually sits on these. These are the pier blocks. And so these are some of those pieces. This is actually the front. And so this is actually printing up the front pieces. And this actually doesn't show up very well the way this seemed to crop the pictures. This picture down here got really cropped. But anyway, the net is that this piece goes into the wall, and this piece is inside in the back, and those together glue up to form the top and the bottom. And when it gets done, basically all of the windows are framed. In the front, I'm doing all 3D printing because they're kind of unique and they have these really fine mullions. But unfortunately, that's taken the back seat. To the left is actually the kit I'm doing for the clinic, or not a kit, the building I'm doing for a clinic at the NMRA, and I have to finish it. So I've been focused on getting it painted. And then I did finish the other kit on the right. So that's the Blair line. So we'll talk about that later.
I was just saying when you couldn't hear us that I just spent 2 hours recording my clinic. So.
No, I actually was responding to that. That's great. You know, it's really, I mean, and there may be some additional opportunities to do clinics, but it's pretty cool because what you do is you record it, and if you make a mistake, you can go back and change it. And then when it's done, you're there to interact, and then afterwards you'll be able to go right away to a place where you can talk as long as you want afterwards. So it's.
There was some question as to what that name is going to be. Like I had a slide up saying, hey, just if you have any questions, and hopefully I'll have some answers, we'll be in a chat room off the main hall or the great hall.
I think they decided to call it The Clinic Goes On again.
Oh,
and just the same thing. But what's going to happen is basically in the morning, there are going to be 3 clinics. And so there will be 3 breakouts, 1 for each clinic.
Yeah.
So if you're on the night, let's say you go to the 9 o'clock clinic, and it's just the thing that you've wanted to learn about your whole life, and the person who's there is the person who's the best at it. So at 9:45, you go to the breakout to have a conversation. You can talk for 2 hours. So it's kind of a cool opportunity to have some really extended discussions.
Yeah.
So.
Well, listen, guys, I'm going to stop the recording here shortly so that Ed doesn't have to keep working, and we can keep talking here. Our show coming up Saturday, May the 15th, is going to be a little bit different. Andy Kinney's going to be here for his op corner, but he's going to have the representative of the NMRA Operations SIG come and talk a little bit with us. And I really think you're going to find that very interesting. Paul Thompson's going to be here, and we're going to have Bob Farquhar complete his build along with the Blair Line kit and some other events that I think you'll find interesting. So please visit our website, newtracksmodeling.com, for more information on all our upcoming shows and particularly the build alongs. Send me an email with any comments you may have. Thanks for coming again. We really appreciate it. Sorry that our featured modeler couldn't be here this evening, but those things happen. And we wish him all the best. And hope you learned something this evening and hope you'll come back again.